All right, thank you, Regina. I really appreciate that. Welcome to a Marketing Experiments web clinic. Many people on the line today. Just want to start off by welcoming you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be on this call. At Marketing Experiments, what we're trying to do is we do a lot of research here at MECLABS, and at Marketing Experiments, it's just kind of our way of giving you an inside look into the research that's coming through the lab here at MECLABS. And our goal is really one thing. We want to discover what is working. And so that's what this whole clinic is going to be all about. In particular, we're going to be looking today at digital subscriptions. Now, oftentimes when we do these clinics, we're talking about big topics. We're talking about big marketing topics that hit a lot of people across the board. Today, we've really honed in on one specific thing, and that is digital subscriptions. And that's why, the reason why is because a lot of our audience out there is facing this challenge of how do I get digital subscribers. We hear that a lot from our audience, and particularly for people in this range or kind of this industry of taking people from experiences that are online and getting them to commit to those experiences, from offline to online. So things like newspapers or certain content offers or and even some sort of services as well, taking those from offline and getting them online. And we're going to talk today about how do you do that effectively. And we're going to look at experiments. That's what we normally do here. We don't just want to give you guys opinions about what we think works best. We actually want to show you what we've tested and what we've discovered actually works. We're going to look today specifically at a survey that we conducted with over 900 U.S. consumers to really understand what is it that drives the average consumer to subscribe digitally. There's some really fascinating results that we've seen, things that you might not expect, and if you grab a hold of them, it can really help you generate results in your subscription efforts. I am going to start off with an experiment, and this experiment is meant to just get us thinking, get us started. And it's an experiment. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it because I'm going to show you a couple pages and get you to vote. But this was for a newspaper organization that is, facing challenges that a lot of different, digital subscription organizations are facing. They've had historically had a big print presence, and now they're trying to get people to commit digitally, and it's very challenging. And so as part of that process, they created 2 pages, all right? One of these is a control, one of these is a treatment. I'm not going to tell you which one is which. I'm going to show you them both here, okay? I'm not going to say much. I will say that version A was focusing more on kind of the value or more the experience of the subscription, and version B was focusing on the kind of discounted entry-level price. And what I want you to do right now is I want you to look at these 2 pages. We got marketers all on the line here. And I just want, before I tell you the results, I want you to kind of use your marketing intuition to guess. If you, for instance, were in a situation where you were presented these 2 pages, your boss or someone working for you comes in and says, hey, we want to do this campaign and here are the page options. Which do you think we should launch? I want you to put yourself in that place and ask yourself, would you go with version A or would you go with version B? Go ahead and use your question and answer feature provided by GoToWebinar to answer that question. All you got to do is put version A or version B. And again, none of this is going to be held against you. You're not going to be that's going to be against your personal record in any way. And one thing I want to say about this on the beginning, we're going to be spending a good 30 minutes together. And what I want to do is make this less of a monologue where I'm just speaking to you. I want to make this an actual dialogue where we're going back and forth. So get ready to answer, and I see answers coming in right now. I've got a whole team standing by, and they're pulling over the answers on the screen right now for me to see. I see a lot of you guys are jumping in on this, and it looks like, from the things that I'm seeing, it looks like there's a pretty good split. Let me read you some of the responses that I'm getting on either version A or version B. You guys are thinking hard on this. The reason why I'm hesitating is because I saw it for a second and then all of a sudden it disappeared. What you can't see is we record this in a green studio room. I'm here with a team, and I'm observing. Can you go ahead and bring that over? What I need is the responses that. Okay, so what we're seeing, if at least anecdotally, hold on, I want to give them a chance to get in because I don't want to make this up. I want you guys to hear from your audience. Again, trying to make this an actual dialogue. I don't know if we can get someone in here to support Ken on getting this question and answer provided. It was up for a second and it just disappeared. It just went away from the screen. So I want to make sure we actually get that up on the screen. Just give us a quick second. Finally. Yeah, I can't I can't survive without that. Good. So let me just read you some of the answers we're getting. And so, Christy says 1. Teresa, you're saying version A. Christy, you say version B. It's funny, at the very beginning, a lot of you were saying A. I don't know how, if you guys were talking to each other. And then towards the end, you're saying version B. So it seems like a pretty good split, maybe slightly leaning towards A. But here were the actual results. Boom. Version A, believe it or not, wasn't a small difference. It was a massive difference, and it generated a 173% increase in actual click-through rate. Phenomenal performance in version A, and you can see the results here. All these have been statistically validated by a team of statisticians here, and I believe this was at a 95% level or more level of confidence. And so 173% increase in conversion on version A. And the big question isn't, I know I asked you which one do you think will win, and it's great that some of you got it right, and maybe you're a little bummed because you didn't get it right. That's okay, because the more important question is not what page won, it's why did version A outperform version B. And we're going to talk about that in this clinic. We're going to walk through this test as well as many other tests to kind of illustrate some of the principles that we've discovered from the research. But in this clinic, you'll know why version A generated more results, and you will be able to see a page like version A and actually identify it as a page that's going to increase the probability of conversion. Now I want to introduce someone special on the call today. This is Selena Blue, and she was really engaged and involved in the research that we did here with our consumer base. We had a whole team on it, a team of researchers, but Selena was particularly involved. And so Selena, just on the beginning of this, just set up kind of what you guys did, what was the approach, and how you conducted this research.
Sure. So, of course, we have a library of experiments around this topic, but we wanted to go beyond that and kind of as thoroughly as possible answer, the question around how to increase digital subscriptions. So we actually did a survey with 900 U.S. consumers. So we kind of narrowed it down to, they make at least 40,000 annually, and they are read the news, once a week at least. And then beyond that, we also did an academic literature review to see what research already existed out there around this topic. And then we also interviewed industry and academic experts in the field. So you can kind of see we kind of had quite a variety of people who we spoke to and really learned from about this topic.
Excellent. So lots of research, guys. Survey of over 900 people, literature review, interviews with some of the top people. And from that, we produced this executive series, but in it, we're going to walk through today were 4 key insights, 4 things that we discovered in terms of what motivates consumers to purchase. So that's what we're going to walk through right now. I'm not going to delay it any further, and I'm just going to start off with the first one. And this may be the most important one. This is really valuable for you to get. It's one that we see a lot of digital subscribers miss. Okay, I'm not saying you're missing it, but a lot of them do. And here's the big idea. All right. Marketers for digital subscriptions are often focused on the wrong thing. And here's why. Digital subscriptions lack a perceived product level value proposition. We must sell the value of not just our service, but the platform as well. What this is saying is that people, though they may get the value of your service, the value of your content, they don't quite yet understand the value of the category of a digital subscription. And you can see this in some of the metrics, some of the results we saw from the survey. Selena, explain to us what we're seeing here on the screen.
So these are 2 of the statements we asked the survey takers to kind of tell us how strongly they agree or disagree. And so the first one, we see that they don't really understand the benefit of a digital news source subscription, since they can access a lot of the information for free. So a lot of information, news or otherwise, the internet has made it readily available. And like it says, much of it for free. So kind of going to the next one, I would never pay for an ongoing digital subscription for any news source. So kind of putting these two together, they're not understanding, like you said, the category, and they're not willing to pay for it because they're not being able to justify it in their own minds, that cost when they can get it for free. So not just looking at your competitors who are also paid subscriptions, but you really need to look at your competitors that are free, because it's likely a competitor that you could be missing.
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable point, and it connects to this concept that we often talk about, not only on these clinics, but in some of our courses here at MECLABS, this idea of a product level value proposition. Now this diagram, for those who have not seen it before, it might be a bit overwhelming. It's okay. We've talked about this idea of value proposition. Most of us have some sort of concept of that. And at the primary level, your value proposition is this idea of, if I'm your ideal prospect, why should I buy from you? Why should I buy from you as a company? So if I'm the New York Times and I'm thinking about my primary value proposition, it's something like this. If I'm the ideal prospect, why should I buy from the New York Times? What is happening is a lot of digital subscribers are focused answering that question. And what the research is showing is that people actually know, for many of you guys, your customers know the answer to that question already. They're not looking for you to answer that. The problem is not at the primary level. It's not even at the prospect level. The issue is at the product level, meaning not why should I buy from the New York Times, but why should I buy this product, this specific category of product. So digital subscriptions right now, according to our research, have a product level value proposition. As a whole, the consumers do not understand why and this is what Selena was talking about, they don't understand why they should pay for something that they could potentially get for free. And I know that seems intuitive, but what you'll find out is most of our campaigns are not answering that question, not even trying to answer that question. That was what was wrong with this first test that we opened this clinic with, is that the version B is focused on the entry-level price. It's focused on really more of the cost side of things. They're almost, and I'll show you actually, I want to zoom in here. They're actually, if you read it, they're not even trying to express necessarily the value proposition of the product. They actually assume, up here at the top section of this page, that you're already bought into the product. You already believe in the product, and now we're just trying to reduce the cost associated with that. With any marketing campaign, you can either intensify the value or you can reduce the cost. This is focused on the cost. Now, to be fair to this page and to the team that created this page, below you get into some of that stuff. You do, but it's de-emphasized. It's really below the fold. In the sequence of things, it's not primary. It's secondary, maybe even tertiary in the process. If you look, the shift we made in version B, it may not seem like a big shift in terms of the design of the page or the changes on the page, but it was a massive shift in the focus and really in the way the customer was thinking about the offer. And so, I mean, you look here at the top line, we're not even focused about cost at all right now. We're focused on the experience, the value of the experience of this digital subscription. You get unlimited access to unlimited stories from your computer, your smartphone, your tablet, and we're beginning to talk about that robust experience that you can't get anywhere from, and this is going against kind of the print version. And then we go even deeper about the reading experience and trying to explain. We even give them the opportunity to take a tour. If you notice, almost 100% of this page is focused on what we would call the product level value proposition. We're not trying to convince you about the company. If you notice, we're not really talking about the content. We're actually, it's funny, in the first example, we assume that they are bought into the product in version B. In this one, we're assuming that we're assuming that they already know about the content, they know about the company, and that they need to be convinced about the particular product itself. And so this page just does a much better job of connecting to that product level value proposition. I think the big thing that people on the line who are dealing with digital subscriptions and are trying to motivate consumers, the big thing you need to take away from this is make sure that somewhere in your messaging, as you're trying to talk about a digital subscription, that you're actually connecting the customer to the value of that digital subscription. Doesn't mean you can't talk about your content, doesn't mean you can't talk about those things, but probably if they're already there with you, they know about you, it's not that they need to be convinced about. It's the actual digital subscription experience. So bring some more of those elements into your actual campaigns. That's a recommendation. It's definitely worthy of a test. It's worked in many experiments that we have conducted here. Now I'm moving on to, we have 4 insights. We're on number 2 right now, and here it is. And I think this is interesting, and it touches to something we talk about here called friction. But consumers have been conditioned to expect a seamless digital experience. We must minimize any friction or barriers standing in the way of a subscription. Now this is for everybody. You know, any marketer out there, any business out there is trying to get people to buy anything. We kind of know this, right? We know that the easier it is, the more likely people will purchase, okay? But what we want you to know is that in this, what we discovered in our research is that there's actually a heightened sense to disrupts, friction. At least it appears to be a heightened sense of concern or frustration when it comes to digital subscription offers. And you can actually see this in the data here. And what I want to do is, Celine, just explain to the audience kind of the big takeaway from this point of data that we saw from the consumers.
So in this, we're going to be looking at kind of the first and the third statements here that we asked. And the third one is, I find ads on news sites to be intrusive. And so you can see a pretty large portion strongly feel that way. You know, ads, especially when they're within the actual articles themselves, you know, disrupt the eye path and makes it harder, you know, in the experience.
And we find that particularly true whether you're dealing with digital subscription or whether you're dealing with an e-commerce thing. That's a pretty common thing. Mm-hmm. Walk us through that top line, because that's pretty unique.
So the first one is that they are very frustrated when they start to read an article and then find out kind of midway that they have to pay for the rest. So they've started to be engaged, they're interested in it, and then you kind of cut them off. And so you can see, you know, 58% were strongly agreed with this frustration, and that was one of the largest strongly agree statements that we had.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something we can relate to. I don't know, audience, let me know. Have you experienced this, I mean, would you agree with the consumers here? Would you find it frustrating when you start to read an article and you find out that you need to pay to read the rest? Have any of you experienced that? If so, how did that make you feel? And how did you respond to that? I would love to get your feedback. And particularly, you know, I assume that there's people on this call who are dealing with digital subscriptions. How does it make you feel when you get interrupted like that? And particularly in the midway in an article, or you're trying to, you know, in midway in some sort of part of the product. I see, you know, people saying, you know, Krista says, very yes, I don't like that. You know, Glenn says, I usually close the window. Listen, I can relate to that. I understand that. It's very, I mean, it's almost like in the real world, if you're having a conversation with someone, if Selena and I were talking and we were having a conversation and all of a sudden Ken, just in the middle of it, just runs up and says, hey, what's going on? And just interrupts it, I think we would probably not like Ken that much.
No,
It would bother us. And so that's kind of, in some sense, like what's going on. And now here's the challenge. And I just see another question came on. Here's the challenge. Some of you are probably going online, but yeah, I need them to subscribe. You know, Ken's going, I needed to get their attention. I needed to say something to them. And that's true. And so how do you make that balance, right? Because no matter what you're doing, what you're selling, if there's a place where you're asking something from the customer, there's going to be friction. There's going to be something that it'll frustrate them a little bit. But what we're seeing is that the way these kind of interrupts are happening is creating more frustrations. I want to show you a very fascinating test in which we just played with this a little bit, right? Trying to understand, like, what's the balance. So here's a large news organization. You would know who they were if I showed you their name. And what they're trying to do is figure out what is the optimal way to create these interrupts. It's not that they want to completely get rid of them, because they've got to get the subscriptions, but how do they do it? And so here's their control experience. You know, in the first article, there's a little splash that comes up. There's with a meter. In the second article, they don't experience that. The third article, they can just read it without any interrupt. But then because they can get 5 total articles before they're hit with kind of the paywall, the 4th one reminds them, and then the 5th one also reminds them before they get the actual, the wall there. And so we just hypothesize, what if we remove just one of those? You're still going through the process of trying to get them to subscribe. We're not giving them more access, but with just the way we message the actual meters, the way we brought those interrupts, we just removed the 5th one. And we did more testing beyond this, but for this experiment, we just removed the 5th one. Does anyone want to take a guess? And then we drove into this. Anyone want to take a guess on the kind of response that we saw from this? I mean, just quickly, what do you think? What kind of result might come from, and you can actually see them kind of side by side here, what kind of result do you think might come from just not making major changes, just taking that final last warning article out? Give some thought. Again, I'm trying to make this a dialogue. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think it's going to have a big impact, or do you think it has a negative impact? I'll say this: if it has the word treatment on it, it usually means it outperforms. So, how much impact do you think this might have? What percentage? Do you think you'd have what do you think? I'll give you a second there. Let me show you. So in this, Tim said, there's a few of you said a couple of things. I see, 15% or 40%. Believe it or not, that small change generated a 115% increase in subscriptions. And so kind of confirming the point that Selena brought up, that there's some sensitivity to the interrupts, we've seen that confirmed in the actual behavior as well, not just what they say, but what they actually do. So one thing, just stepping back before I go to the next principle, so just look at your processes. Almost, in some sense, I kind of, at the very beginning, asked you to consider, have you ever been annoyed? A lot of times, we kind of take off our human hat whenever we're doing our marketing campaigns. One of the best things you can do as a marketer is to become a human again. And to kind of take off your marketing hat and put yourself in the shoes of your customer and actually try to subscribe, try to do something and feel all the pain that they feel, and in some sense become the customer and find those pay points and reduce as many as you possibly can. Can't always reduce all of them, but reducing them as much as you can often has a significant impact in conversion. I'm going to start moving a little faster now. I'm watching the clock. I have 2 more principles to go through, and here is number 3. And this one actually sets up a pretty fascinating piece of data. But what we discovered from the research is that exclusivity is the primary motivation for subscribers. We must make the customer think that they can't get this, or they can only get this from you. And so we found that also exclusivity had a big impact, particularly for content digital subscriptions. And so we're going to show you 2 pieces of data, and you just got to pay attention here. It's a little more complicated than what we've shown you a minute ago, but it's really fascinating. It's really helpful for understanding consumers. So Selena, walk us through this chart.
So in this question, we were asking them which topics are most important when they're looking for a printed newspaper or digital news source. And so if you notice in the top 3, we have national news, politics, government, and international news. So those are what they said were most important. However, if you look in the 3 red, you'll notice that there's a disconnect in their actual behavior. So when we did a regression analysis, it was these 3 who popped up as the 3 topics that were most likely to predict a news consumer, whether they would actually subscribe.
This is very fascinating. I don't know if you've caught that, audience. Basically, what the customer is saying is, "Hey, this is what makes us subscribe." And some of these things in red were ranked lower. But when we actually did the regressive analysis that Selena talked about, we discovered that the things that really motivated them, it seemed to be these things they rated lower, which is fascinating. First off, it's fascinating from a research standpoint, right? Because some of you guys are doing surveys, some of you guys swear by focus groups, but how many of you guys can testify of either doing surveys or focus groups that the customer may say one thing and do something completely different? We saw that in this case. That was fascinating. But one of the things is the kinds of things that rose to the top to impact the predictability of whether someone would buy. What kind of patterns did you see in those things?
So you see things that are definitely going to be a little bit more exclusive to certain newspapers and different sources. There's kind of broader topics that they can get anywhere, including the free sites. They may find them important, but when it actually comes to subscribing, it's the a little more limited in availability topics that really play a bigger part.
Things like crosswords games, editorial opinions pieces, local news. Those are things that, I would agree with you, and when you look at kind of national news or things like, there's a lot of appeal in that. And so it seems like the first answer, they're thinking just about appeal. But what's interesting is the things that actually are driving their reason for why they would subscribe are things that have maybe even less appeal and more exclusivity. And some have both that appeal and exclusivity. And that, we teach a lot about that, about what gives a value proposition for us. And it isn't just appeal, it is both appeal and exclusivity. And so one of the things that you should be thinking about, not just as a marketer, but even as a leader within a digital subscription organization, is how can you bring more prominence to those things that make you exclusive. Now, I'll show you a quick test where we just, we see this, so here's kind of a normal, checkout process where we're collecting information, and one of the questions we have trying to get people to subscribe is, would you like to receive special offers from so-and-so? And you can just check to see that you want to do it. Let me ask you this, audience. How many of you guys reading that are just, man, I want whatever that thing is? We've blurred the names, but just by looking at the words, does that motivate you at all? Does that, I would like to receive special offers. Here's the question. Can you get special offers anywhere else? When was the last time you were offered special offers? Maybe today. Maybe you were searching the web. I mean, I know that even in my inbox, almost every day, I'm getting special offers. And so there's no, one of the things this statement is lacking is exclusivity. There may be some appeal if it's really weak, but maybe you could argue there's appeal, but there's definitely no exclusivity. So we take that and we just tweak it. The page stayed the same, but all we did was change the language. Look at this for just a moment and see if you can hear the difference in the exclusivity. We're amping it up. Sign up to receive subscriber emails. Be the first to learn about exclusive subscriber discounts and new merchandise at blank store, upcoming events. So we've actually talked about exclusive subscriber discounts being the first to learn about. And just by making those changes, we generated a 40% increase in opt-ins to that list. So this is a digital subscription, and it's a part of another process, but just by honing in on exclusivity, we generated a 40% increase in conversion. It's huge. That is huge. That has a massive impact in the kind of the overall net base of your subscribers. So that's the third principle. Main thing is make sure you're tapping into those pieces of exclusivity. This fourth one, I'm actually excited to tell you because it's a little refreshing. It's potentially even encouraging. Customers are waiting for you to ask them to engage. One of the things we found out about consumers when we surveyed them is that they're not as shy about engaging as we often think they are, and they're ready and open and willing to be invited to engage. And we see this in some of the data from the research. Why don't you want to speak to this, Selena?
Sure. So we kind of asked in two different ways what would get them to consider to engage and register. And so the first one we see that 49% of consumers are likely to consider registering with their email if they can get access to that information, articles that they want to read. And then even kind of more exciting is that 63% are likely to consider registering if we can then provide them with customized emails and kind of give them preferences and an experience that's a little bit more specific to them.
I think that's good, and I love this quote from Peter Doucette from the Boston Globe. He talks, and this was from the research you guys did, from the interviews. He speaks to this idea of discovering. We used to have this belief that we had to be, had to soften a user before they would be willing to engage with us. But what we saw is that consumers are much more willing to engage with us than we thought before. And this is, a guy who is in the trenches, working at trying to improve digital subscriptions and just discovering that. And so let me just say this to you on the line is don't be afraid to engage. And in terms of the survey, obviously people are okay with engaging and you asking for emails and things like that, and software asks. But what we discovered even in some of our research is that some of these even further down the funnel asks, consumers are okay with you asking them as well. Obviously, we don't want to create friction like we talked about earlier in the way we ask. We don't want to just blare in their face. But at the same time, we don't have to be shy. In this case, we were a little bit hesitant, so we had the buy now, but we kind of weighted it with some of these other options just because we didn't want to be too heavy-handed with the offer. And all we did was, well, let's just test that. Let's see how, does that actually matter? Can we be a little bit more forthright with the offer? And so you can see here, we still have to learn more, but we've emphasized the subscription, the buy now, confirm my subscription. And by making that shift, by emphasizing the thing that we actually want them to do and just asking them and not being afraid to do that, we saw a 64% increase in overall conversions. And so again, big takeaway, don't be afraid to ask for things. There are a lot of takeaways from this around the product level value proposition, around making sure our experiences were seamless, making sure that we're asking for things, and here's just a quick checklist of things. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm just providing this to you as a way to cash in everything we've talked about in this session. You can take a screenshot of this. We also will produce this into a digital video that you can watch, and that'll be released in about a week or so. But you can right now take a screenshot of this if you want to. It's just a quick checklist. As you are looking at your campaigns, you can ask these questions of yourself and try to improve your campaigns. In fact, you know what might be good? Because I'm about to move on to a live page submitted by the audience. You might want to just take a screenshot of this so you can have it, because I want you to see if you can begin applying these things to an actual page. So get ready, okay? Because my goal here is not just to change the way you think, but to give you something that you can actually apply to your pages. So we're going to do what we call live optimization. I think with the time we have, I'm only going to be able to get to one page. But what I will say this is, what we've done based on some of the requests we got from these web clinics is we have set up a completely dedicated webinar to live optimization. And so if that's something like, if you're going, I didn't know I could get my page optimized. I didn't see that when I was signing up. It is an option. And if you click that button right there and register, submit your page, it's possible we will try to get to it on that actual webinar. We're going to spend a whole hour just reviewing pages. And so if you want to get feedback on your digital subscription offers, on your paywalls, whatever it is, would love to get your submissions and be able to help you with that. Right now, I just want to look at this page, and I'm going to see if we can cash in what we've been talking about. And this page was submitted by Ari, and it's a company called Panopto. I think I'm saying that right, and it's basically software as a service. And their goal here is that they're trying to get people to subscribe for a demo, or not subscribe, but basically engage with a demo. And it requires getting their information, become a lead, that kind of thing. Many of you on the call can probably relate to this. Oftentimes you have free product trials, you got things like that, and so this page is going to be potentially very similar to maybe a page you even have on your site. But just look at this page. This was submitted by someone in the audience, and I want to ask you, audience, get ready. We'll scroll all the way down, look all the way back up, and we're just going to stay on the top of this page right now. So just scroll all the way back up to the top, because there's a lot of opportunity just at the top of the page. But looking at this audience, based on what we talked about, where do you see, what would you say in terms of how could they improve potentially, how could they get more people to request a demo? What things could they do? What could they do with their images? What could they do with their copy? How could they, so I don't want to say a whole lot. I want to see that you guys are able to catch this. And what recommendations would you give to Ari based on what we've been talking about today? I have a lot of things I want to say, but I'm holding myself back right now. Just want to give you guys the opportunity to cash in and to try your swing at solving this. And I just have another, I'm 1 minute out, so we're going to do this fast, but I want to give you the chance. So I see, Tim, he says, what is the primary value of the product? Okay, we've talked about product level value proposition issues. This has a primary level value proposition issue. I see, Bennett says bullet point features and shorten the form. I think those are really wise suggestions, and that's connected to some degree the friction we talked about earlier. See a lot of comments coming. I'm going to try to see if I can find one that change C Panopto in action to a benefit. I think that's a really good suggestion, Joe. And so let's start there. Let's start with that headline. Okay, see Panopto in action. Okay, now it probably makes sense to you, Ari, what that means, what they're going to get out of that, and you are connecting it, I think, to the product level value proposition. But what I would say, I would agree with Joe and say, what is the benefit of seeing it in action? What are they going to get out of that experience? What are the 5 things they're going to learn? What are the 20 techniques? What are you going to show them in that? And I think again, I'm just going to assume they know what Panopto is. If they don't, then you're going to want to go there first. But assuming that we know who Panopto is and you're trying to just get them in this demo, you're going to have that product level value proposition of what this demo is actually about. Give us 20 minutes of your time. Now, what is good about that is you are reducing some anxiety. Okay, you're saying 20 minutes. And for some people, that's going to seem like very little. Others, depending on who your target market audience is, like if you're trying to address the C-suite, that may be really a lot of time. So you just got to watch that. You have to test your way into that. One thing I would say about this, based on some of the things we talked about today, where do you see friction on this page? Where do you see potential? Scroll down on the page just for a little bit there. Brent, can you scroll down? There you go. Stop. Go back up. Sorry. Go back up. Right. Yeah. So you've got this video thing that's going on. And I don't know about you, but oftentimes that can be, it's auto-playing. It can be very kind of alarming and difficult. And it's frustrating at times because you're trying to show, like, what is this? Is this what the demo looks like? Is this what the experience? It's not totally clear what this is. And it may actually be very valuable. But because of the way you're auto-playing it, because of the way you have not explained quite what it is, it creates confusion, and it creates the same frustration that people feel whenever you do the paywalls or you interrupt reading. It's like you have interrupted reading content. The other thing I would ask you is on the form field on the side. Scroll up just for a minute, right there. Request a personalized demo. There's some language on this, and I'm going to end with this, and this is just for you, Ari. I would try to shift your focus in the language here. You're focusing on everything on what you're getting from them, okay? You want them to request a demo. You want them, the language actually says, fill out the form on this page to get started. If it's a weekday between this, we will contact you. I mean, how many of you on the other side of this call, how many of you woke up this morning going, man, I just can't wait to fill out a form today. I'm so excited. Maybe, just maybe, I'm going to get to fill out a form today. Maybe someone, if it's between 7 and 5, someone's going to reach out to me. I'm so excited about that. I mean, listen, I know I'm being a little silly here, but that's kind of the approach the consumer has to this page. You are actually focusing on the wrong thing in association with this demo. There's a slight tweak that you can make in terms of just focusing, even in the headline. You want them to see Panopto in action. They don't necessarily want to see Panopto in action. They want something from seeing Panopto in action. Making that slight change from what you get to focusing on what they get is huge. Like, for instance, I'll even show you a real microcosm of that. Scroll down on the page, Brent, just real fast. You guys have to give Brent some credit here. He's got mad skills when it comes to scroll. No, a little bit. No. Sorry, go back up, Brent. I take back everything I said about the mad skills. All right, stop. All right, so see that button, click here. Is that what you, so think about it this way. So just that button, and I've seen tests perform triple-digit gains by just changing the button and changing it in this way, okay? So Ari, think about this. Click here. Is that what they want to do, or is that what you want them to do? It is all cost to them. It is what you want them to click. You need to tell them what they get when they click here. You need to, and it doesn't need to be, we're going to contact you. That's not what they get. What do they get from the experience of the demo? What do they get to learn? What do they get to see and connect to that? And making that slight shift, you'll have a big lift. And you'll connect to that product level value proposition we talked about earlier. Now, there's a lot I could say on this page. Ari, if you have the opportunity to test any of this and you see some positive impact, would love to hear about that. There's nothing more that I enjoy than hearing from our audience and seeing how some of the concepts we talked about actually improve performance. And so, audience, listen, we are done for today. I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I have a whole, I mentioned it earlier as we were trying to, get the questions up. I have a whole team standing by. I actually pulled up the names here in front of me. I want to first say, Selena, thank you. Thanks for taking time out of doing the research you've been doing and coming and sharing with us some of the things that you're finding. I also want to say, there's a lot of names here, but we got, Leva, she was part of the research. Walker standing by answering questions. Ken put the deck together. We have a whole AV team standing by. Obviously, Brent's Mad Scroller. We got Tara on audio. We got Luke back there. Not sure what he's doing, but he is making this thing run. And so, and we got a lot of people. There's more names than I can mention. So just thank you. A lot goes into these. They're completely free. We ask one thing of you, okay? Actually, two things. I'm going to add two things, okay? It's free, all right? Just two things. Number one, would love to get your feedback, all right? We're just like we're running tests. In us, we're always trying to optimize, so there'll be a little survey at the end of this. Would love to get your feedback. If you want to get any more training, we'd love to hear about that. If you'd like to run tests like we've shown you on this clinic, we would love to partner with you. We're always looking for research partners who are interested in learning what works. The other thing I would say is if you found this clinic valuable, just share it with a friend. We're trying to build a community of marketers out there interested in discovering what really works. And so hopefully that describes you, and hopefully we can add more people into this community. Thank you guys for taking time out of your schedule. We'll see you back here in a few weeks.